Here's why Apple is going to war with all of these big banks that you know and probably use today. Apple's plan to take over the banking industry is actually already in effect. You're probably familiar with Apple Pay, Google Play, and PayPal. The reason why the banks are getting so scared is because in 2021, 2022, and 2023, there has been more activated users with digital wallets than ever before. In fact, out of the 125 million active Apple users right now, 78% of them have activated and used their Apple Wallet. And that means that 98 million people daily are using Apple Pay. In fact, the big banks are so scared that the CEO of Chase Bank, Jamie Dimon, in quote, said,
"Absolutely, we should be scared about that."
When Tim Cook first introduced Apple Pay in 2014, it wasn't the very first digital wallet, but Apple also wasn't the first to come out with the MP3 player, aka the iPod, or the first to come out with a smartphone either. Apple does decide to enter a market, competitors should be terrified. But Apple has one made competitive advantage over all digital wallets, and it's called the iPhone. Now, I know all you Android users are out there thinking, so what? A new study from the New York Post actually shows that the average iPhone user makes more money than the average Android user. Why does this matter? Because the average person with a digital wallet buying coffee or using their digital wallet for common purchases are actually using it at establishments like Starbucks and Whole Foods. Starbucks and Whole Foods' target demographic customer has a medium household income of $85,000 a year. This puts Apple at the competitive advantage over Google Play and PayPal. Apple Pay is the only digital wallet that every bank agreed to pay a transaction fee on. And here's how that works. Banks make money on debit and credit card interchange fees, which merchants pay to the bank that issues your card when you shop with it. Those fees are normally 1 to 3% of your total purchases. If you buy a coffee and a bagel for $10 with a 2% interchange fee, the bank gets 20 cents on that transaction. But if you use Apple Pay, now the bank has to actually pay Apple 3/4 of a cent back to them. Rather than the bank keeping the full 20 cents, now the bank makes 18.5 cents while Apple gets 1.5 cents on that transaction. Now, one small transaction, it probably doesn't seem like a big deal. Multiply that by a few hundred million transactions, and Apple took home $782 million in 2022. Now, why the hell would banks agree to this? Now, the belief is that if banks don't play ball, then does Apple go and create some sort of a mechanism to cut the banks out of the picture altogether? $782 million number is actually only 1% of Apple's total revenue. And it may not seem like a big deal, but the amount of revenue and users in Apple Pay have doubled since 2021. Now, the real fear from all the big banks is that they're losing brand and overall name recognition. Now, as this becomes the new standard of using a digital wallet with everyday use, Apple actually wants to become the lender, aka the bank. It's not unreasonable for people to just move all of their money from big banks over to Apple. Apple's already taking baby steps to becoming a bank. Back in 2019, Apple launched the Apple Card, and in March, it started its own buy now, pay later program. Apple's subsidiary, Apple Financing LLC, will be the lender and taking over the role that your bank or lender would normally handle. Banks, of course, have rolled out their own tech with tap-to-pay cards for easy and fast transactions, as well as they also plan to compete with Apple with their own digital wallet to be released soon under the name Paze. Paze will be operated by these 7 banks. Paze will allow customers to access debit and credit cards by email and hopes to be just as fast and easy to use as Apple Pay, and for all users, not just Apple users. This only actually works if the market decides to accept it, and it's a better product than the current digital wallets out there. I mean, come on, who really needs another app? This is also not the first time that banks have tried to launch a digital wallet. In fact, Chase shut down Chase Pay in 2021, and it was mainly because there are limitations on the iPhone. Big surprise. There's a ton of digital wallets out there trying to compete in the space currently right now. But the real question is, who will be the winner in the next 2 to 5 years? There's always 3 to 5 big names that emerge victorious and weather the storm. In fact, when cell phone popularity blew up in the early 2000s, these here are the only names that you see standing. In fact, in the crypto space, what are the few names that you always hear and see all the time? In the computer space, who made it long-term there as well? Even video games. The list goes on and on. The real question I want you to ask is, what video should I do next? Comment below.